By far, one of the largest domestic terrorist and also general political threats that we're facing, not just in the United States, but across the English speaking world right now, is disenfranchised young men. And I know that I've spent a lot of time on this channel dispelling the various myths and misunderstandings in regards to this topic, and also sounding the alarm on the growing moral panic surrounding people who look and sound like me. But I do think that there is a real issue here. And it's primarily because there are real issues that this group of people are facing that people on the progressive side are not talking about. And if they are, it's not enough. And they're not talking to these people, and they're not speaking the language that they intuitively understand. The people who are speaking to them and speaking to them in that way happen to be people who are extraordinarily radical in their disposition and have the goal of making these people extremists, taking advantage of what they're going through. It's not a new phenomenon to have an alienated demographic that ends up being used as cannon fodder at the helm of an extremist ideology. Usually, these are the first people to be taken advantage of and manipulated for whatever strife that they may be experiencing at that time. But uh, it's happening today. So the question is, what are these people facing, and what exactly can we, the accepting, progressively minded people, do about it? Like, there's a lot of people out there who are my age, white men, who would take one look at me and then assume this person can never get laid, this person can never have a girlfriend, this person can never succeed in so many facets of life, basic facets of life. And yet I've done so. And I've done so in spite of the fact that I do not have a large income or almost any income, which is, usually the thing that ends up being used by a lot of these people to explain away the sexual and romantic success of people who are, you know, not of above average looks the way that I'm not. They would say, well, that person just has money, that person just has a career. I don't have any of that stuff. I'm just a normal guy, but I'm nice, and I respect myself, and I'm not desperate, and I have been able to connect with someone whom I love very deeply, who seems to feel the same way about me, um, merely through being friends with them, interacting with them on a human level. Wow, what a crazy idea. But I feel like when these people are told you just need to go to the gym, or you just need to humanize women, or a statement that I agree with, that I feel like gets hurled at these people without much context. Women don't owe you anything. I mean, this is true. Um, but it's also not speaking to the alienation that these people are feeling, right? Like, it's sort of like me throwing out the statistic 1350. Okay, despite being 13% of the population, black people commit 50% of crimes. It's like you have to qualify that statement with something. If you don't end up Saying exactly why that's the case, matters of alienation, um, you know, social problems that have been created by government malpractice, etc., historical marginalization, you're kind of implying that there's something inherently violent about this group, which is not true, right? I feel like the same thing kind of applies here. When you make a statement like, women don't owe you anything, which is technically true, and then you don't qualify it with anything after that, you end up like sounding completely and utterly alienating to these people. They're not going to listen to you. I would make a statement like that and follow it up with the fact that a lot of the attitudes that people have that they tend to be unaware of are kind of unattractive, and that they're outwardly showing these unattractive traits on forms that are not ideal for finding a partner. Like, if you're going on Tinder, just forget about it. There's only going to be like 10, 5, maybe like 3% of guys who are successful on Tinder, because Tinder is about the most shallow attributes possible being put on display for basically just women to take the reins and have complete control over who succeeds in that. I hate to say marketplace, but we might as well, in that marketplace. And so, like, there's something real happening there, right? The problem is, you would not, like, merely acknowledging that reality does not mean that there are not other ways, much better ways, much ways in which you are much more likely to succeed, um, where you can get a girlfriend. I think the best example of something like this is club activities. Joining a book club, uh, participating in a sport, joining a club like maybe about movies or something, volunteering. All of these things provide ample opportunity for you to meet people your own age, and also people who are the opposite gender. These are places where you can meet people and talk to them. Now, don't just go there being incredibly horny and like singling out the women and talking to them as though the only thing about them is that they're fuckable, because women are going to be able to tell that you're speaking to them like that. And it's also just not a very nice way to treat somebody. And talk to everyone there like they're equals, and shoot the shit with people, develop friendships with girls, and enter a relationship with one of those girls, maybe, if you're compatible, if you get on in that way. These things take time. Like, it that old saying that you have to love yourself before you can love someone else, it sounds like advice that would be pasted to the top of r/relationship advice or something, but it's so commonplace because it's true. The more desperate that you are, the more that you seem like you only want to be in a relationship for the sake of not being alone, the less attractive you're going to be. Because, like, it's almost impossible to value the person that you're with on their individual merits when you're like mainly focused on just being with someone or anyone. Like, you're not going to be able to truly appreciate them when that desperation is this ever-present factor. And so, showing through your behavior, through your actions, that you're a safe person to be around, that you're a kind and respectful and respectable person, someone who does not have this immense desperation, someone who can humanize the people around you, including the women around you. That's going to be how you break through that barrier. And I can say all of this while saying that we need to get off of the dating apps, because the the women have basically all of the control there, while also saying that men are facing these real problems with connecting with other people. Um, and I think a lot of things about our society today as well is basically encouraging this outcome. The fact that we're all behind computers all day, all on phones, that seemed to be something that played into my advantage in the dating sphere, because I just so happened to find people that I connected with better through being in online communities, which has led to my various relationships, including the one that I'm in now. But I digress. Uh, Usually, you're going to find a relationship from a real place, from participating in clubs, being in some kind of community activity space. It having shared interests is going to be a huge thing here. But society has changed so much. Like, the more technology has advanced, the more control technology has exerted over our lives, the more autonomy has been given to technology to dictate the form that society takes, and thereby influencing through its various arms, through its mechanistic constraints, um, our own lives. The form that we take. And this is the ever corrosive nature of technology, and it's only continued to further alienate us as a species. And I think it's something that, like, you have to brute force your way out of. um, and it's difficult. It's difficult, especially considering the fact that a lot of these community spaces are something you have to actively seek out and look for, like, high and wide. Um, it can be difficult depending on the community that you live in. If you live in, like, a really rural community, sometimes, like, a church is the only thing you've got, right? Um, but it's not hopeless. Like, these alternatives exist. Ways there exist. Um, there was another point I wanted to make. I'm trying to think. Um, Fuck, I forgot what it was. Yeah, like, women don't like this is the thing. Like, you don't want to move it too far into one direction or another, because women don't like nice guys or simps, but they do like you to be nice to them. And that's a line that you have to walk, I think, just by, like, being normal. Like, think of how you treat your male friends. Everybody's different, in how you're gonna treat them, but, like, you can just about approximate how you ought to treat a woman based on, the respect that you show to your male friends. Like, just treat everybody the same. That's going to do a lot of the legwork here, right? um I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean, a lot of this comes down to bad attitudes that we harbor, bad mindsets that we have. Like, I think a lot of men reflexively blame women for the rejection that they get, but they rejected you, I think, because they're right. They rejected you because there were traits that you had that were undesirable, that uh, you need to work on, be it health or fitness, or problems with your personality, your appearance, uh, your status in life. When it comes to, like, work and these things. I mean, these are all things that we can work on, and sometimes, you have to have the humility to be able to admit that these are things that you need to work on. And then, you can be worthy of the affection of someone. And this is a thing that works both ways. Like, you have certain guys that are super super desperate that will just go for anybody, but I think in general people across both genders want an attractive partner, they want a responsible partner, they want someone of good character. This is a normal thing to want. Like, these are not radical things to ask of someone, and yet by the incel crowd they're treated that way. um and I think, like, another component to this is economic. Like, uh with the economic downturn and the fact that we haven't really properly recovered from it after all this time, and like the sheer amount of debt that exists in our society, like the toxic work culture, I mean, these are things that are all going to draw people apart from one another. Um, the fact that a lot of people are dipping into drugs as a way of uh, what's the word, um, simulating the feelings of that you would get from interacting with someone, for lack of a better term. It's like people use that to replace the satisfaction that they would get from interacting with their fellow people. I mean, these are all like huge problems. Um, yeah, I I think like the main way that these things are going to be addressed is through a substantial change in mindset, and from like putting in active effort to meet people when you're in a place when like you actually can meet them and respect them as human beings, once you respect yourself in that kind of way. um yeah, I mean, there's a lot of problems men are facing. The higher suicide rates, um the issues with getting a job, having a well-paying job, the cost of living. Like, these are all huge problems that men are facing. Um, and it makes sense that in this time of particular misery and alienation, that people would cling to ideology that finds someone to blame. But it's not women to blame. It's not minority groups to blame. Um, it's not a feminist culture to blame. It's the people in power. It's corporations. It's the monopolistic class that we have, that has control over our financial and cultural institutions. It's not women. It's not our fellow people. It's something much broader than that. And in many respects, those women that you're railing against are experiencing not always the same, but some pretty similar alienation